Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to be joined on this Sunday afternoon by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
Daniel, how are we?
Very good, thanks. We're also joined by Record Sports Michael Gannon. Mick, how are you?
Good afternoon. There's no better place to be in a bank holiday rainy weekend than in the room of doom.
I've actually got a bit of sunshine. I don't know about where you are, Mick, but I've got sunshine outside, which is a nice little chink of light, but there we are.
Well, I don't know what I sound like the middle-aged man that I now am, but this is great for my garden, great for the lawn. It's a wee bit brown, so I'm quite happy with this, to be honest with you. It's quite good to my garden.
Priorities are in order.
Yeah.
Obviously, guys, there's only really one place for us to start, and that's Hampden. And Keith, look, I'm not throwing you under the bus by saying you said it. You said it'd be almost impossible for Celtic not to win. I agreed with you, but Aberdeen, 35 years, first Scottish Cup. I don't even know where to start. What a result for them.
Do you know what? First, let me state that I'm absolutely thrilled for them. And you saw the celebrations and how much it meant to them, and Graham Shinney, and so many stories. Even the boy Mackenzie, who, you know, 1 week he's getting hit by a chair at Tannadice, smashing up, which he comes onto the pitch as a sub, which was remarkable in itself. I actually thought there was a storyline in him that he was going to get the winner, but just the fact that they got there, they got over the line. Genuinely, you need to have a heart of stone not to really feel the moment for them, and it was fantastic. That said, and what I will say as well is credit Jimmy Tilleen that he changed his system, which, you know, I think might be for the first time this season. He did it. He was pragmatic enough to make a change. And I think what he tried to do was purely to stay in the game. Don't let it get away from you. Don't let Celtic, you know, get their tails up and you know, inflict serious damage. And that's what I thought Aberdeen were heading for at Hampden. Let's be honest. I thought they were going to get routed. But he changed his system. He made Aberdeen a little bit more difficult to get through. And I think they enjoyed a bit of luck, because that was possibly Celtic's, you know, worst performance of the season. You know, when that treble was in the line, it's so unlike them. I think at 1-0, I think they thought they were coasting. And it was one of those days for Celtic, wasn't it, where if it could go wrong, it did go wrong. Even you know, I said before the game, Daniel, that I would have liked to see James Forrest start instead of Nicholas Kuhn. I think we saw from Nicholas Kuhn's performance and from the kind of cameo that James Forrest had when he came on, that would have been a better bet for Celtic. And even then, you know, James Forrest has to go off injured. It just kind of summed up the day for Celtic. It just wasn't working for them. And you have to say as well that Jimmy Tilleen got to a point in the match where he then makes his substitutions, and those substitutions make Aberdeen stronger. And the substitutions that Celtic make, James Forrest aside, but then having to replace him as well, those substitutions made Celtic weaker. So the momentum was with Aberdeen, and eventually, ultimately, the luck was with them in the penalty shootout. Although you have to say as well, the penalties were superb, brilliant penalty kicks. Astonishingly good penalty kicks, actually, given what was on the line. And ultimately, a real sore one for Callum McGregor. And again, heart of stone required if you didn't feel for him on the final whistle, given everything that he's given that club, all the leadership, the sort of motivation, the drive. It was a sore one that Callum McGregor had to be the guy that missed that first penalty kick, and from that moment on, I just felt there was only going to be one winner. You just felt it was written for Aberdeen at that point.
McGregor's first defeat, I think, in a cup final, isn't it? Both senior and at junior level as well.
And the first time Brendan Rodgers has lost a Scottish Cup tie, which is astonishing in itself.
I think it's like 22 games. But Mike, what did you make of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is adds to this kind of the year of the underdog, doesn't it? We've seen this stories across Europe. In England, you've got Crystal Palace and Newcastle. Italy, you get Bologna, and then Napoli with the Scots invasion out there. I think the Go-Ahead Eagles won a cup in Holland. The German Cup final was at Stuttgart beat a team from the third division. It's like this in a year of kind of underdogs. And it did seem to be a kind of hint of destiny about this for Aberdeen. But that's not taken away from where they played. I mean, listen, and Keith touched on it there. Jimmy Tilling's game plan worked a treat. Done a job on Celtic. Listen, they nuked the game as a spectacle, let's be honest. But they had to nuke the game as a spectacle. No, they did. I mean, the first half was...
It was terrible, mate. It was wrong.
We're all joking about that, the Man U Spurs game. I said, this is the worst cup final we've seen for 3 days.
Yeah. And by the way, when the own goal goes in, you're thinking a really terrible own goal scored by a Spurs player, and it's 1-0, and that's going to win a really terrible cup final. It was almost like history repeating.
It was, and then there was another terrible own goal with 7 minutes to go. They went to send it next time penalties. So Aberdeen, I mean, listen, they changed their formation. They abandoned this man for man set up they've used all season. And against Celtic, which has been torturous for them. I mean, they get a good 20 minutes working that way, and as soon as it's broken, it falls apart. So he changed his game plan. They choked the game, done a job in Celtic. And I think actually they deserved their kind of day in the kind of not so sunshine at Hampden. I think it was one of these remarkable kind of historic moments. 20,000 Aberdeen fans go bananas. The parade today, the scenes look incredible. It's a nice moment for the club and for the city. I think, like you said, Hearts of Stone. You can't grudge them their moment. It's a sensational story. Kind of Celtic didn't do enough. Looked flat. I don't think they looked complacent, but I think they ran out of ideas and they looked a bit sluggish. But it's something that's maybe kept out of their game. I think. I don't think it's a kind of one-off bad day. I think this has been coming a wee bit this second half of the season, because Celtic, when you look back to December, I think Celtic looked to be on the cusp of an extraordinary season.
Yeah,
I think we're looking at. I thought at that point in time, I kept wondering at what point do I ask the question to Rodgers about the prospect of another invincible campaign. I mean, they went the first 19, 20 games and one defeat or something like that. I just thought this could be another one of these seasons. They're doing well in Europe and all that stuff. It looked to be it could have been an exceptional season. Listen, it's still a very good season. They've won a double. They won the league by a mile. At times they've played a lot of great football. They've scored a ton of goals. But there has been this wee creeping sensation since the turn of the year that things haven't been quite at the same level. And listen, in contrast, Celtic lost one domestic game in the entire of 2024. They've lost 5, and they're only in May now in 2025. And listen, I know people will say the league was done, the foot was off the gas, and some of these defeats wouldn't have happened. And I think I take that point, right? But that once or twice, maybe 5 times, I think there's maybe symptoms of other things. I think they missed Rio Hatate in the final. I think some players looked as though they had run out of steam. They've been used probably too many times this season, especially in the last 4 or 5 weeks, where I think there could have been more rotation done, or even the last 3 or 4 months, there could be more rotation done. Guys like Arthur Johnson looked pretty much bursted. He made surgery a fortnight ago. Dyson Maeda, who's been outstanding all season, the player of the year, didn't look his normal self. Again, been getting flogged. I've been saying it since January. Lack of buying a striker meant he'd get flogged for 6 months. It was going to take its toll. I mean, you see him running through and goal in the last few minutes. 2 months ago, he's putting it at the back of the net. This time, he's barely staying on his feet. He's completely out on his feet because he's back through in that centre-forward role, having run his legs off out the wide areas all day because Adamida's not been effectual again for an hour. Again, questions about the signings. I mean, Celtic spent £27 million last summer. 2 of them get hooked to half-time. One of them doesn't even start. So there is... Listen, these are all picking hairs. This is what we do. You've got to be forensic. So there are things that Celtic have not been perfect this last 5 months. And I think it's maybe come back to haunt them a wee bit. Because we've seen this display a couple of times. St Johnstone was one of them. Rangers, back in January, which maybe kind of kick-started this kind of sticky spell went through. But there's been a few performances like that have cropped up. And listen, by the way, also some very good performances as well. Smashing teams and looking the part. But when it doesn't quite work, it can get a bit stodgy. And it didn't really... I mean, the chances, right, but Celtic usually create 20 chances, 20 shots on goal. I think at half time they had no shots on goal. They were a goal ahead without hitting a shot on target.
Yeah.
And they didn't add that many. They only hit the post in the bar in the second half. But they didn't do enough. They just didn't do enough. And I think it's just a wee reminder to Celtic that, listen, they have been all conquering in recent times, but there's still a good bit of work to be done with the Celtic squad. They haven't cracked it. I know they're missing some players. Jota and Hatate were big misses, like I say. But I still think they're not quite the finished article yet. And there's work to be done.
We've got, I'm sure you can imagine, a plethora of comments coming in. A lot of people want to have their say.
Does that mean a lot?
Sorry?
Does that mean a lot?
That means a lot, before we do that, though, should we hear from both managers before we go on? Let's hear what both managers had to say after the full-time whistle yesterday.
All this week we have tried to visualize how we can win this game and create this belief inside the squad and how they compete. Celtic is a really good team. Brendan is a really amazing manager, but the way the players compete today out there, how they defend together, they were cramped, they were tired, but they keep believing, and I'm so proud how they also used the energy from our supporters to travel down here today. When they were so tight, they tried to take the extra step from each other, and it was just so they were so strong in the penalties also. So what can I say? I'm happy, relieved, tired, and I'm gonna enjoy this evening. They were so mature today in tactical discipline today, the whole game, and never stop believing, and that's why I'm so proud, because it's not easy when you have played against Celtic some days before and lose 5-1, and you have a final, but the belief and everybody around the club supported, and so I sometimes in this moment you have to catch them and grow with them, and they did, and that's not, it sounds easy, but it's not easy. So it says a lot about the character in the team today. Yeah, I think I've said some penalties before, and he's so good in this situation, and so mentally strong in this moment and this important moment. But also the guys who put the penalties, they were really, really good penalties today in the top corner. So it was good.
That was Jimmy Tilleen. I think we might have Brendan Rodgers as well.
No, I'm not angry. This is a team that's given me so much. You know, their honesty, their quality, their football. That's what finals, you know, does sometimes. You know, we're on this side of it now. So many times I've sat in here. You know, I've had 11 finals, and you know, both up here and down in England. And this is my first loss in those. So you have to accept that. It's a part of sport. It's a part of football. And as long as you can look at it and reflect honestly and think, well, we weren't good enough in our quality arriving into the final third of the pitch, and we've got no one else to blame. Yeah, he's obviously apologetic to his teammates, and but he's been outstanding for us all season. It was one of those moments in the game late on that can happen. We still had one or two other chances that we could have scored from, but yeah, it was just unfortunate at that time of the game. Well, no, he's such a conscientious guy who's gives so much to this club, and obviously as the skipper, he's obviously so disappointed he hasn't scored. But I was just reminding him what an incredible leader he is for this club, and he's given so much to this season and to all the seasons that I've ever known him. Such an amazing guy, and it's unfortunate the keeper makes the save. So, but no, he'll come back in the summer stronger, fitter, and ready to go again. The bigger picture: we've won 2 out of 3 domestic trophies, progressed in Europe, and now's the time to go away with your families, because they will need them, and it's important that they have that time to reflect. And then after a few weeks, they'll realise that, okay, we missed a chance today to win the 3 trophies, but still, we'll be consistently very good over the course of the season, and then we come back re-motivated and renew the motivation in the summer.
Let me throw some comments at you, because I'm actually a little bit surprised at the level of vitriol directed towards Brendan Rodgers. Ronnie,
do you live in Glasgow?
No, No, I know, but he's won a double.
Guys,
Ronnie says, we got what we deserved yesterday. Rodgers taking off Kuhn, Engels and Ida at 60 minutes was suicide. Completely weakened us. Dennis says, a top-level coach like Rodgers needs to be more flexible. He was sussed out again today and watched. There's a combination of midfield players that did very little, no spark or drive. Johnny says, Rodgers needs to be looked at. When did he last make a sub to change a game positively? The last time we played well in a derby game, he shouldn't be untouchable. Jordan though says, I'm a Celtic fan. The amount of Celtic fans who just think we're entitled to win everything is embarrassing. Your thoughts on that, Keith?
Yeah, I've written a column about it tomorrow, actually, Daniel. There is, and do you know something? On reflection, you can't actually blame. There's a generation here of Celtic fans that know nothing but triumphs, trophies, and trebles, and that's just what they've grown up. That's the norm. Mm-hmm. So you can't actually blame people for, and they don't like the word entitled. They don't like when people say that, but they've become it. It's been a byproduct of the success. The success that Brendan Rodgers was the guy that kickstarted this kind of era where a treble equals par. I said on Thursday, I think it was, that's not a healthy state of affairs to have that mindset when you start a season thinking, well, if we don't win a treble, it's a disappointing campaign. That's a nonsense. Celtic have won the league out the park. They've had a very, more than decent European campaign, and they've got a League Cup, and they came within penalty kicks of making it the clean sweep again. That's a terrific season. And I think it's a very odd state of affairs that we're getting ourselves into, whereby there are Celtic fans out there, lacerating the manager for, one of the comments there about his substitutions. I don't think he got all his substitutions right, but taking off Ida and Nicholas Kuhn was absolutely the right thing to do yesterday. Mm-hmm. Putting James Forrest on injected a bit of life into Celtic down the right-hand side. Ida, I'm sorry, and I feel as if I keep having a go at Ida, and it's not personal, but that's just nowhere near enough. It's nowhere near enough. That's a cup final. This big guy, as I keep saying, I think he's got all the attributes, all the tools are there in the box. I've got a real question about his desire. That he just doesn't give enough for me. And yesterday was a case in point. It's a cup final. Mm-hmm. You have to get more out your centre forward. As Mick says, you've got Dyson Maida absolutely emptying his tank all over the pitch, and then having to come inside and play the main striker role because he does not give enough. So I thought those two substitutions were absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. What I wasn't convinced was taking off Engels and leaving Paulo Bernardo on. I thought that was the change. Thought Engels was still offering something. In fact, only a few moments before he came off, he'd hit the post. So I'm not saying that Brendan Rodgers got everything right yesterday, or indeed over the course of the season, but he's had a lot more right than he's had wrong. This has been a very successful season. Another 2 trophies tucked away in the cabinet. And by the way, I'll go, look, I said it, Dan, you're right. I had no reason to believe that would end yesterday with anything other than a Celtic win and another treble. Aberdeen, were they great? I don't think they were, but they did enough against a poor Celtic side on the day. But what I would say is, right now, before we go into the summer, before the transfer window, I expect Celtic to strengthen again. Rangers have left everything really late in the day. They don't even have a manager in position. So I'm going to go on record right now as saying I think Celtic, I would strongly fancy them to go one better next season and complete another treble and make it, what would that be, 6 out of 10?
6 out of 10, yeah.
Not a bad record, is it?
Before we actually go further, I had this comment in, just back from Aberdeen Street Party. What an incredible atmosphere, still in shock. Aberdeen defensively played world class. I think we can see a little clip of some of the celebrations in the Granite City today. There you go. I want to read it. I want to read this comment because it just kind of makes me laugh. But Keith, you were talking about Kuhn and Ida. Schmeichel in the comments is getting a bit of stick as well. Christian says he looked like Boris Johnson in goals yesterday. He's been playing like a complete dunderhead for a while now. There was a lot of players yesterday that just didn't turn up for Celtic.
Yeah, and that was, look, I don't know how many times I've watched Aberdeen's equaliser back, and I still can't quite understand. Mick used to be a goalkeeper, so he tells us. So, I'll defer to him on this, but all he has to do is smother the ball there. Just get his body on top of it. I don't know what he was trying to do. It looks as if he was trying to slap it away. It's an inexplicable mistake. And you just don't... somebody there saying that he's been playing like that for a while. I don't know if I've seen much evidence of that. I was completely shocked by that moment, as I think most of Celtic's players were. And I think at that, when that happened, that's what I'm saying, Daniel, about everything that could go wrong for Celtic did go wrong. And that was the moment for me. And I actually felt, as soon as that one went in, Aberdeen were going to win it. And by the way, they deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
How they played from, I'm going to say maybe 20 minutes into the second half. From that point onward, over the 2 halves extra time, yes, there was a period in the second half extra time when Celtic kind of were getting on top and kind of penning them into their own penalty box. But Aberdeen defended everything superbly well. And I feel, yes, I don't think they really turned up. But again, I'm talking about in the first half. But I'm going to come back to the fact that I think Jimmy Tillene sacrificed something in order to keep his team in the game. And it worked. And you've got to say well done to him. And you've got to say congratulations. Me and Dave Cormack don't go on particularly well. But I have to tell you, I was genuinely thrilled for him as well. I sometimes think that Dave Cormack's a bit guilty of, putting himself before the football club sometimes. The fact that he's named the training park after himself when he could have called it a variety of other names. But do you know something? I think he's well-meaning. I know that he's a big Aberdeen supporter. He's spent a lot of money. He's put a lot of time and effort and energy into it. He's had health issues and all that. I was actually genuinely delighted for him yesterday. You could see how much it meant to him. And, thrilled for a guy like Graham Shinnie as well, because these are once in a lifetime. Graham Shinnie's had his hands in the Scottish Cup twice now as an underdog. You've got to be delighted for these guys, because it quite plainly means the world to them. And I can imagine that last night would have been terrific. Today's obviously going to be an outstanding moment for them that will live for the rest of their lives. And I'm sure the next couple of weeks will be pretty good as well. And, they thoroughly enjoy it. They thoroughly deserve it. They should enjoy it.
Mick, in the comments, Keith is saying that he would already back Celtic for another treble next season. Graham in the comments says a massive spend is needed this summer, absolutely huge. 40 million minimum, striker, midfielder, centre-half, maybe even a goalie. Do you anticipate it being that busy a summer for Celtic?
I don't know about 40 million, right enough.
Seems a lot.
Striker's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, Roger said in start of the January, needed a striker, didn't get one. And it's come back. It was said countless times that was going to come back and bite him in the bum, and it did. Mm-hmm. It totally. I mean, I'm talking about that losing games after the new year. I think not having invested in a striker in the failures window contributed to that. And I know, listen, Kyogo, I think was a big miss. I know he wanted to go away, but as I say, the numbers add up. I mean, Celtic's win percentage in the first half of the season with Kyogo was 80-odd%. It dropped to 60-odd%. And I know there's mitigating factors, but I know you've got 3 guys that have scored 20 goals plus this season, which is a big haul. So they maybe haven't lost his goals, but I certainly think in the bigger games and big moments, Kyogo was a big miss. And never replaced him. So that's come back to bite them. So a striker is an absolute top priority. Another wide player is a top priority as well, because obviously Jota's going to be out till at least January, perhaps longer. It's going to take him time. You could perhaps suggest his season's written off next year as well, till he's back to fitness, because he barely played in 18 months. He'd played a couple of months, then gets injured, so he's not going to be right. You could argue for another year. So I need another wide player, another striker. I still think, despite having spent £15 million in centre halves, I still don't know who's Carter Vickers' best partner is. When they signed Narocki for £4 million, Lagerbielke for £3 million, Trusty for £6 million, all to try and overtake Liam Scales, and he's still in the team as a first choice partner for Carter Vickers. So is he going to start the season number one choice, or are these three guys who cost a lot of money going to step up, or are they going to buy another centre half? It's an issue. I think it's been a position that's not really been dealt with properly. Obviously, Kieran Tierney coming in is a big deal. They're going to need an extra left back to kind of compete with Kieran Tierney. I know Roger said the door's still open to Greg Taylor. I think they're even still talking to Taylor and Jeffrey Sloop. Sloop, I don't know. I mean, I think they're talking about offers for him in far-flung places, earning good money. I suspect maybe wish him the best in his future endeavours. I don't think he's quite got it for Celtic. I think he's been a good player over the years, but I think even off the bench at Hampden, I think Greg Taylor was struggling up against Shaden Morris, and they put him in midfield and put Sloop at left back to compete with that. Didn't compete with it. Get skinned a few times for pace. In fairness, Morris could skin most folk. I mean, Usain Bolt would have had tasking up at the time. So I get that, but I'm not sure he's worth that. A left back to compete with Kieran Tierney if it's not going to be Greg Taylor. Goalkeeper, I think Boljami Sinisalo showed enough to suggest that he is a possibility to number one. I wouldn't be writing off Schmeichel just yet. I mean, I don't know if it was an issue with the injury issue was still kind of hampering him slightly at the weekend. I mean, I don't even know what shoulder it was, but it went the same way for each penalty kick, and it wasn't the way he went for the goal. Is that because he's maybe consciously thinking about his shoulder? I don't know. But it was a really awkward way of going down to get it. I don't know what he was thinking. Like he said, I mean, I had to get slaughtered for that kind of thing. Put the ball in net from that point. I should like to say I played a game at Parkhead last Monday and didn't do it in that daft by the way. I get through that without making a fool of myself for once. Just to add that in there. Apart from
it's funny because there were definite shades of Mick Gannon about the way that he dealt with that.
Well, no. I think I talking about Schmeichel in Munich was more Gannon-esque rather than Schmeichel at Hampden. I did get dinked by Effie Ambrose last Monday, so maybe keep my mouth shut. But it was but that I don't think that's a problem position because I think Schmeichel's fine, and I think Sinisalo should get more game time next year as well because I think he came in and looked the part. I think that's a position that shouldn't really cause too much concern. But there's issues, yeah, and I think Hatate getting injured might put the brakes on a potential departure for him because he's going to be out through the summer and come back for pre-season, so that might hold back any kind of moves for him. Might not. Dyson Maida's future, I think, is still an interesting one as well. I mean, obviously he's got a new addition to his family back in Japan. He's going to be scooting back to meet his new kid. Personally, I think he should be let go. I think he should be told to get back and stay back there until the cup final. I think the last few weeks maybe it was a bit silly having him stick around. But 2 years to go in his contract, the Celtic cash in on him, depending on the offers. I think there will be offers for him. So I think there could be if they
either extend his contract this summer, Mike, or they sell him.
It's sign or go. That's the reality of it. So I mean, if you're looking at losing Hatate and or Maida, you're looking at then a wee bit of a rebuild in terms of guys that have been serial winners and performers for Celtic for 4 seasons. And it might be that Rodgers thinks it's the end of a cycle and it's time to kind of have a wee bit of a rebuild. But then he's in his last year's contract. So there's a lot of things going on at Celtic this summer. So is Rodgers going to start off a new rebuild, a new look squad with 12 months to go in his contract? His future is going to be a talking point every week next season, unless that's addressed at some point. So there's a lot of things in motion at Celtic. It's going to be interesting, I think.
What do you think, Keith? Do you anticipate a big overhaul? I mean, the comment up on the screen just now from John, Kuhn is a one-trick pony, Bernardo and Engels were poor again, he does a donkey. I mean, do you anticipate a big turnover of players this summer at Celtic Park?
I don't think so. I think I've said previously, I think that Brendan Rodgers will want a sort of a precision targeting with sort of premium end players rather than a kind of scattergun approach to the transfer market. This is for me, this is the fascinating one with Celtic because he has convinced the board, he's pushed them to go his way. And his way is, don't spend £20 million on 5 players, spend it in 3. Or thereabouts. You know what I mean by that. He wants them to push the boat out. He did that. He was given the funds to sign Adamida. I'm sorry. As much as I do believe there's a player in there, for whatever reason, it's not coming out. And, you know, it's a big summer for Adamida, for Brendan Rodgers to try and get through him, connect with him. Because right now it's looking like £9.5 million badly spent. Engels, more promising. A good player, has had some great moments, has had some pretty average ones. Wasn't great yesterday, but thought he was better than Paulo Bernardo. That's why I was surprised to see that substitution. But again, this is the argument. If Brendan Rodgers has convinced Celtic to spend 9 million here and 11 million there, and if you took the pair of them to the market this summer, would you even get your money back? I'm not sure that you would. So, having convinced Celtic that this is the way they should go, they should turn away from the model that's worked so spectacularly for so long, which is this, well, spread the money, spend 3 million at a time, bring in 4, 5, 6 options, and you only need 2 of them to, you know, be a big success. You're selling them for 15 million, 20 million, 25 million. So in terms of the Moneyball aspect of it, it's going to be fascinating for me. Does Brendan Rodgers still have that sort of pull and clout that the board are going to say, yep, we'll go again, go and spend £10 million on a striker, go and spend £12 million on a winger, go and spend £8 million on a centre-half? Or will they kind of return a lot closer to the model which has worked so well in Celtic's favour over the period where they've been able to stockpile money? I think that's a massive business decision, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see what the transfer market looks like for Celtic this summer, because it will be one or the other. I don't think you'll get an in-between.
Well, this is where they're going to have to be a bit more nimble, because they end up paying over the odds last summer for players that they could have got for much cheaper. I mean, people throw the transfer fees around Ida and Engels, but they were brought in late in the window when Celtic were under severe P to start splashing cash. They sold Matt O'Reilly, who, by the way, bought for 1.5 million, sold for 25, which is probably the model. That is the model. Mm-hmm. So because they dithered, because they hadn't agreed a clause with Adamida, ended up paying 3 times the value for Adamida. If Adamida cost £4 million, nobody would bat an eyelid. 20 goals would be a great return. Because he's £9 million, people go, need more, big man. So that's not his fault. Same with Engels. Engels can be snapped up 6 weeks earlier for half the price. Again, nobody would bat an eyelid because these fees are because of Celtic dithering in the market. That can't happen this year. Whether it's a 5 million, 10 million, 15 or 25 million pound player, they need to be decisive and get it done to get the players in the door for the Champions League qualifiers, and to save. They could end up costing themselves money by doing that.
But you get my point, Mick.
If you guys are signed late in the window.
If you're on the Celtic board right now, do you say to Brendan, "I'm sorry, but you know you encourage us to go a different way, and it doesn't appear to have worked. This looks like bad investments, bad money. We are going to return to how we were running it previously before you encouraged us to go a different way." I actually think there's a big decision to be made there.
Guys like Adamida and Engels were identified and agreed with by Rodgers way in advance, among millions of other targets, by the way. But because they didn't get the jobs done early, and they tried not to spend the money, it cost them more. So it's not Rodgers' fault that they spent £20 million on those two, because they were agreed on months or weeks and months before. Because it wasn't done sharpish, it cost them more money. So it's been decisive. And listen, the money thing as well, listen, because there's money in the bank, punters want to see it spent, and they get excited to go, £10 million transfer, right? But Matt O'Reilly, 1.5, Dyson Maeda, 1.5, Hatate, £1 million, Liam Scales, 500 grand, he's put now countless games. So that it doesn't always mean that kind of money doesn't guarantee you all the time. Celtic and Rangers, by the way, have spent £4 or £5 million on players through the years who have been complete duds, and it's money down the drain.
Yeah.
Listen, Rangers are stuck by a handful of guys that cost that kind of money, and they can't get short of them. So the money thing is they could actually be more economical if they move swifter. They're going to have to find out, because also the new recruitment team in charge this season, Paul Tisdale's now fronting that up, and now's the kind of proofs of the pudding. January, I thought, was not a great window. When they signed Kieran Tierney, who was basically banging the door to come back, they signed Jota, who was banging the door to come back. So it's not exactly unearthed these hidden gems. Do you know what I mean? A guy standing at the front door with a bags packed, going to please sign me. You know what I mean? So they're not exactly unearthing hidden gems here. So they're going to have to get their act together on recruitment again. Because listen, the bedrock of this team has been there for 4 years. I think Kuhn's the one that's come in and listen, first half of the season he was sensational, had a bit of dip, never really get back to his same levels, but he's a good player. I think McCown's a good signing, £1 million, another £1 million, good squad signing, never letting me down. But I do think the recruitment team has to get this right this summer. So it's not about going out and spending £30 million on 3 players. They did that in the last 2 windows, and it's not really had the output they wanted, really. Either financially or kind of playing wise, against the kind of the caveat they've had a good season, they won 2 trophies and were a penalty kick away from winning all 3 of them. But I just think in the terms of the progression of the club, in terms of keeping this model going and keeping building and improving, they need to be sharpened up in this market. Because I think our Celtic demonstrably better than they were 2 years ago when they won the treble under Ange? I'm not sure you could argue they are. But the team of 2 years ago that Ange left the treble beat the current team, I think you could argue they probably could, which means the progression hasn't quite been there. So there's been bumps in the transfer market. The first window under Rodgers was an absolute shambles. There's barely a player left that they signed that summer. Yank off the bench. I'm afraid that might be the last that Yang's going to be seen in these parts. Had a decent wee spell, kind of when the league was done at the times. You know what I mean, but I'm afraid he's not going to cut it at this level. The rest of them have barely seen guys that are now long forgotten about. Second window slightly better, but again, question marks about recruitment. Needs to be tighter, needs to be quicker, needs to be more nimble, and they need to get the gears turning quickly.
We should probably round off our cup final chat talking about the team that won, Keith. West Coast Dawn says, proud of my team winning against the odds. Stopping Celtic is a mighty ask of any team, but we did it. Teelan got it right, didn't make it easy for Celtic, and our penalties were incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the definition of a rollercoaster season for Jimmy Teelan. I mean...
Well, at least he's made an impression.
Certainly has.
But by the way, I think what I should say, Daniel, is before we came on the show here, I got a direct message from Gianni, who's obviously not commenting today. I think it's his birthday. So obviously, such a regular contributor, we should say hello and happy birthday and have a nice day.
Happy 70th, Gianni.
Yes, happy 70th. Aberdeen. Look, I'll kind of repeat what I said at the start. I didn't fancy them at all. I'll actually go further than that and say I think I tipped Celtic to win it 5-0. And even then, I thought I was being conservative in my estimate. I thought Celtic could run over the top of them. I fully expected that they would. I didn't expect Jimmy Teelan to change his tactics. I didn't expect Jimmy Teelan to go to 5 at the back and to try and suffocate Celtic. And I've just got to doff my cap to him, because he's come up with a system there and he's went against his principles, and a little bit like we were talking about Ange Postecoglou had to go anti-Ange ball to win the Europa League with Spurs. Jimmy Teelan's went against his principles there. It's pragmatic. It's good management. He's changed it. It was terrible to watch. It didn't make for a very good cup final, but it became a really good cup final because Aberdeen stayed in it. Had Celtic got the first, got the second, got the third, then that's exactly what you were expecting. But Jimmy Teelan gave Brendan Rodgers something to think about. And maybe there is an argument that Brendan Rodgers took too long to try and respond to it. But I think it's more a case of Celtic, too many of their best players just didn't turn up for the work. Aberdeen, they were gritty, they were resolute, they were robust, they defended stoutly, all the kind of things that you're looking for. But when he made the change, it was almost as if he'd told them, "Look, hang in there, just hang in, just keep in it, just don't get, even if you go a goal behind, we're still in this." And then it was almost as if he flicked a switch, and the Aberdeen players knew that switch was going to get flicked. And when it did, all of a sudden, Aberdeen, the whole approach to how they were trying to get at Celtic changed. It was a complete kind of switcheroo in terms of a team that was just happy to be there. So it seemed for I don't know, an hour. All of a sudden, for that last half hour of the second half, sorry, and into extra time, all of a sudden they looked as if they believed, and they didn't look like that team for the first. And I think it was all part of a plan. I'm pretty sure it was, and I cannot praise Jimmy Tilleen enough for it. The season that he's had, in absolutely astonishing the way it began. 11 games in, unbelievable, and you thought at that point there's a real chance here. They were never going to beat Celtic to the title. There's a real chance of second place. They blew that. They've come fifth. That's not good. But my God, if you're asking me, if you're an Aberdeen supporter right now, you're looking at that going, wow, there could be real exciting times to come. I don't know what happened to Aberdeen halfway through this season. They completely fell off a cliff. But Jimmy Tilleen, in his first season, he's done enough to suggest that he might be the real deal after all. And there was a bit midway through this season where I was thinking, I said that at the start, I think this guy's good. There's going to be bright times ahead at Aberdeen. But when it fell away, and it fell away so spectacularly, I was looking at him thinking, I don't know if you're in the right movie now. But to finish off the season in style like that, making a bit of history, it has to mean that Aberdeen start next season right on the front foot.
And Mick, the group stage European football next season, worth 5 or 6 million quid.
Jimmy Tilleen, we better just putting that trophy down the town hall this afternoon and saying, cheerio, I'm off, right? Because every manager who's had to compete in the group stages in Europe has got the bullet that year.
Good point, eh?
Or left their job or end up under severe P. It's a nice reward, but a heck of a hard balancing act. So he's got that to look forward to as well. Listen, the punters will never forget. I mean, I think he's earned his place in history, and the punters will never forget it. I mean, they're starved of success up there, and they'll enjoy this more than anything. It's also great to see that big parade, tens of thousands, and probably only half of them were Scottish media. Do you know what I mean? They're so underrepresented in the Scottish media. I used to work up there at neck of the woods, and they used to talk about the West Coast bias and the Ouija. I was like, you've got to be kidding me on. Half the media are dandies. I think BBC Scotland were driving that bus up there. Unbelievable. The West Coast bias.
I think they've got their own compartment on the Aberdeen team bus. You know that big massive bus they've got. I'm sure there's a BBC department, a studio at the back.
It's a bendy bus. It's one of those big long bendy buses. I must admit, I think that's always quite amusing. But listen, I think it's a great story in terms of one of our big city clubs that have been starved of success for so long, and doing it in dramatic style. So listen, fair play to them. Guys like Dave Cormack and all the others up there who've worked so hard. I mean, guys like Alan Burrows and Steve Gunn and all that. Guys that have been taking flack left, right, and centre at times. And it's nice to see them enjoy their moment. I think I'm pleased for them as well. And about 90% of our chums in the media as well.
Before we round up the show, Keith, got a few people asking about the ongoing, never-ending Rangers managerial saga. There's more reports out there that Davide Ancelotti is back on the menu. I mean, will we be back to that tomorrow, do you think?
I think there's every chance. Obviously, his last game for Real Madrid, or as part of his dad's backroom team at Real Madrid, was yesterday against Real Sociedad.
Yep.
So he is now without club, and I'm pretty sure Rangers we know that Rangers spoke to him. They seem to think it might be a good idea. I'm not so sure. But I also think that Russell Martin has now, Leicester have been hovering around him. I think that's moved on over the last 24 to 48 hours. I think they've had some talks. I'm not sure that Russell Martin's the answer either. I'm not sure that Steven Gerrard's the answer. So the Ancelotti one, I think we'll find out now. You know that I've got my suspicions. I think, and if I was the Rangers board, I would have scored him off my list on the back of the fact that he and his dad leaked the story out for leverage, whatever it was for, to the press in Spain and in Italy. That would give me a trust issue with him, and I've already got issues given that he's a 36-year-old guy that's never managed a team before. So, look, if Rangers are if this is where they're going to end up hanging their mast, it'll be fascinating. I get the feeling, Daniel, that there's a touch, and we've seen this, and it's something that's been repeated, Mick, when American owners come into Scottish clubs, they seem to kind of just think that they know better. That I think there's a touch of arrogance, there's a touch of ego about it. I'm not laying that at Andrew Kavanagh's door by any stretch of the imagination, because he's not hands-on at this minute in time. It's Kevin Thelwell and Greta Steinson that are driving this, and I do think that they are showing signs of arrogance and ego, and perhaps want to reinvent the wheel. And I think that if it is Ancelotti, it's an incredible punt. The risk attached to this appointment is really considerable. It might be a spectacular success. He might have picked up, the apple might not have fallen that far from the tree. He might have picked up everything in terms of his dad's sort of coaching philosophy and expertise. But if this goes wrong, it will go wrong quickly, and it could end up really, really messy. And at that point, you wonder, do things have to get worse for Rangers before they get any better? Do egos need to be bruised, and do they need to retreat a little bit? And do they need to just, not try and be smarter than the average bear, if you know what I mean? I really think if it is Ancelotti, it's the risk attached to it is huge, and potentially dangerous. And so, but we'll see. What I do believe is, Daniel, that this thing will crystallise. The picture will become a whole lot clearer over the next 24 to 48 hours. I was saying that this time last week, so who knows? But you have to think, because they simply don't have time to mess around.
Aye.
And the other thing that you would say about Ancelotti, if they do go that way, and if they allow him to go with his dad to South America for Brazil's World Cup qualifiers against Ecuador and Paraguay, that's astonishing. It's a really bad look, because if anybody hasn't noticed, if Ancelotti Jr. hasn't quite noticed yet, this is a massive job at a massive football club, and you have got massive amounts of work to do in order to get yourself ready for next season. I'm afraid going to the other side of the world to be, your dad's wingman for two qualifiers, that's not going to cut it. I think it's a really, really bad look. And if Rangers allow that to happen, then that's on Thelwell and it's on Greta Steinson.
Aye. Well, I guess time will tell.
Nick?
Yeah. What?
Cheers.
I agree. There's a bit of me though would quite like to see Ancelotti Jr., who listen, a guy who literally grown up in the great cathedrals of European football, standing in the bucket and rain on a Tuesday night at Almond Vale, pit his wits against Davy Martindale. There's something that I think would be brilliant about this. To talk about a culture shock, because it's all right, every coaching course and badge in the world, that's the reality of Scottish football. Getting down and dirty with one of the best wheeler dealers in the business, something like that would be really be good to see. I think just in a kind of a wider sense, to see what his thoughts are. A guy who literally grew up at the side of his dad in these great places in Europe, standing there in the bucket and rain, getting wits against a 6'9" striker was running ragged for long throws
on a plastic pitch at the Tony Macaroni.
A new plastic pitch, by the way, a new one, a new fancy one that's going to put in. I think. No, something like that would be. I definitely appeal to that as well.
Aye. Well, time will tell if that pans out. If it does, we'll be here to cover it all. Thank you so much for all the comments today. We really appreciate you getting involved in the conversation. If you want to have your say, you can do so tomorrow night at 6 p.m. when we'll be back to do it all again. Keith, Mick, thank you so much as ever.
No problem, Dan.
All right, guys, catch you later on.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.